Hi everyone, Heather Steves here, and today I'm going to share another page from my 2024 Journal Together album, and the prompt for February was Make Woodgrain. So I started out with some light beige cardstock, and I grabbed my scoreboard, and I'm just scoring this on the opposite side that I want to use. You see that it's two-toned, and I'm just scoring it every about a half an inch. So not exactly a half inch, I'm kind of random, a little bit over, a little bit under, just so that it is not completely even and just looks a little bit more natural. So once I had the entire piece scored, I put that away, and then I grabbed out my non-stick mat, and I grabbed some light colored ink. So I was looking at two colors. I decided on this lighter one. It looks a lot darker when you first put it on, and you'll notice as you swipe across, it picks it up a lot more on the edges. But that's as simple as it is, and especially once you start to use it, it just starts to look more and more like wood grain. So next I'm cutting out my actual pages. So this is the smaller page with the stitching around it, and I'm going to cut out two of those, one for each side of my album. Now you may not have realized it, but when I'm putting these square or straight line dies through my machine, I always make sure that I turn them on a little bit of an angle if at all possible. You can see there. It just helps to make sure that they cut better so that I don't have that straight edge piece going through those rollers. So the second piece I cut out on the reverse side, just so that it would match the indents on my base page. And now I'm just going through with my little pokey tool here, and I'm just pushing those stitching perforations through to the other side just to make it look a little bit more like the other side. And then I realized it would be faster probably if I ran my bone folder over it. So I did that, and then I went back and did it again. So I thought it would be fun to make a little interactive door on this page. So I took the larger of the little square dies that is part of the set and added that onto my wood grain piece, but I just had the one side hanging over the edge so that it would not cut all the way through. Now, unfortunately, it shifted, or I just didn't line it up exactly right, so it kind of cut through a little bit at the bottom of the door. So I just ended up adding a little piece of washi tape on there, probably not the best color choice, just to kind of hold it together. I wasn't really thinking about it showing because it was on the back side, but when you open the door, it does kind of show. And then I'm just scoring that just so that it folds nicely and will open up nice for me. So now that those pieces are all prepared, I just grab my beige ink, and I'm just going around all of the edges of both pages to ink distress them. So since I have a door, I thought it made sense that I should have a lock and a key. So I grabbed out those two little dies again from the same set, and I just cut them out. This is mixed media paper. It's like over 100 pound, I think, really heavy stuff. And I just thought it would work best for these because they're probably going to be loose on my page. So I got them cut out, and then I'm going to emboss on them. So since these pieces are so tiny, I'm going to use a little trick that I learned online, and I just cut out little strips of paper, and I'm going to attach them to the back of those two die cut pieces. And then that gives me a little handle for me to hold while I'm doing my embossing. That way I don't have to just do one half and then another half and then end up with tweezer marks in my embossing. So because this embossing powder is very chunky, I'm going to use my pancake maker. So I'm just taking my little scoring tool, and I'm just pushing it into my Versamark to make sure I get them nice and inked up with the Versamark, and then just covering them with the embossing powder. So they're not like 100% covered with the embossing powder, but that's okay because I find with this really chunky powder that I usually need to do a couple of coats anyway. So I just put them in the pancake maker to melt. It didn't take too long, but I give it enough time so that it melts in the colors because it's different colored bits in there, so they have to kind of melt together. So I'm just going to go through and repeat that process again just to make sure that I get really good coverage on both of those pieces. So after this second coat, they're looking pretty good. So I think they're done. So I'm just pulling them off of the little backer that I put on, and I just had to fiddle with it a bit just to make sure there wasn't some embossing powder hanging over the actual die cut, but that's how they turned out. I think they look really good. So before I go ahead and do any of the actual embellishing, I'm going to attach these to my little album here. So I'm using some double-sided tape for this. Because it is an interactive element, I find it's better to make sure you use the double-sided tape because it's a little bit stronger. So just attaching it all around the edge. And then whenever I'm doing something like this, I always just peel off one corner of the tape so that I can line it up. So in this case, I did both corners. I lined that up really nicely, and then I just hold everything down and pull the backing off of that tape. Make sure you give it a good rub. That stuff needs a really good push to make sure it's adhered. And then I'm just using regular adhesive on the other side, but I did decide to add a little bit of my wet glue just to be sure. Now that that left page is attached, I can just peel off the little adhesive that's on the little tab there and stick that down as well. So the die that I used for the door also has a stitched matte layer. So I wanted to use that to do some decorating on these pages. So I decided to go ahead and cut out some off-white cardstock, and then I'm just inking that edge, and I wasn't too sure what I was going to do with it, so I grabbed out the stamp that comes with the Journal Romance Special Kit, and I decided to stamp this lovely filigree piece on the center here because it's just so pretty. I thought it would look nice just on its own. I was going to put it inside, but then I realized it looked really nice on the door. So I decided to put it there instead. And once I had it attached, I just was playing around with the lock and key. I couldn't decide if I wanted to put the lock and the key on that same spot or not. The lock looked nice on its own, so I just set it aside. I cut out another panel. I thought it would be nice to have one on both sides of the page. So I prepared that and was looking for what stamp to stamp on there. So I ended up deciding on this swirly one. So I grabbed that onto a block, and then I was just testing it out to see how it fit together. So that's what you see me doing here on this scrap paper, just kind of playing with it to see how it fits against each other. And I was pretty happy with that, so I went ahead and stamped that onto that panel. So I set that panel in place, and then I was playing around with this lock and key again. I found this fancy brad in my stash, so I thought that would actually make a cute little doorknob. So I grabbed out my little foam mat and my piercing tool, and I just put a hole in there for the brad to go through. It wasn't quite big enough. So I ended up having to use my knife to make it a little bit bigger. And then, of course, once I actually attached the brad, I realized you could see the tabs through the back. So I was going to have to do something about that. So I thought it would actually work out well to use that mat inside the door. I ended up deciding to make another key as well, so I had two of them. And then I cut a photo using that same mat, and I decided to put that in the door opening, and then my other piece on the back of the door. I grabbed a little bronze colored split ring from my jewelry stash and my pliers, and I decided to add that onto the two keys so that they're kind of like on a little key ring. So next I pulled out this pretty mandala stamp from the stamp set, stamped that onto my off-white cardstock, and I die cut that out, and then I inked the edges of that. So now I'm thinking it actually looks a lot better without that big large mat on the other page, but I realized I do need to put my label there for the prompt, so I grabbed out the stamp and die from the ATC Special set, and I just got that all ready to go, but I thought I still needed one more thing, so I grabbed out the heart die from the Journal Romance set, and I cut that out again on this heavy cardstock. And I'm just doing the same thing that I did with the keys and the lock, and I'm going to go ahead and emboss that with my fancy embossing powder. So these pages are coming together nicely now. So my next step is to add my monthly journaling prompt on the little label. So I'm just testing out some of my pens that I have in my stash. I've got some black, some brown, some metallic ones. So I ended up settling on this nice sparkly bronze one. I think it looks the best, and I write my little Make Woodgrain prompt right on there. Now I can go ahead and attach everything down onto this page. I did end up using some glue dots just to make sure that things stuck down nicely, especially that little metal ring, because I don't really want it to flop around. So I just stuck a little tiny one underneath there just to kind of hold it in the place that I wanted it to stay in. So for the final touch, I pulled out some dark brown pearl gems from my stash, and I just added a few of those onto the page, and then my page is complete. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel, and have yourself a wonderful day.